Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Networking Thursday. It's the second Thursday of the month, January 13th. We're very glad you're with us today. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please, as soon as you think of something, just put them right into the Zoom chat window. For those people watching on Facebook right now, welcome. Please just enter your questions into the comment field when you're monitoring that feed, and we'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window do not appear in the recording. You're also welcome to put your contact information in the Zoom chat window so that you can network with the other people who are on the call right now. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org, a website to help those who are unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I started a second website, careerusa.org, to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group meets every Friday morning. The group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007. We've got a very interesting program coming up tomorrow, and I'll tell you about that at the end of this presentation. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. You spend a lot of time on your resume, a lot of time on LinkedIn. How much time do you practice interviewing? That is what's going to get no resume, no LinkedIn profile gets you a job. It only gets you a phone call. So how are you going to get that next opportunity? And that's going to be by a really good interview. You need to practice your interviewing skills. And if you'd like to get more information, please feel free to reach out to me about that. Well, every networking session, we have a different speaker talking about networking. We've had 23 different speakers over the last year talking about networking. Today, John McDorman is back with us to talk about networking. How to network from your network. For those who for those in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, John led a Monday night workshop every Monday from the late 1990s into the probably late 2000s. And I know I went to his session. It was a 13-week session. He covered all sorts of great topics. He's a very motivational, very kind of person you want to listen to. And in fact, I actually got a job networking with somebody else who was at that event. So I've known John for a long, long time. He's just all he wants to do is help those in the community. So this is a pre-recorded session. So if you have any questions, we'll get those answered for you at the very end. So give me just a second here to get this up and running.
Well, again, it's good to be here. I'm going to talk about networking strategies or how to network from your network. This is an adaptation from
Well, sorry about that. It's not, his video's not there. So give me just a second and we will relaunch it again. Hold on, I've got to go find it.
On our way to hopefully dancing a little. I haven't started this, but all right. Just move a few things around. Well, again, it's good to be here. I'm going to talk about networking strategies or how to network from your network. This is an adaptation from our topic that we do on the career transition work. But it is now online and you can listen to and see the slideshows associated with each of our topics. And that's just one way to augment your job search, again, free online. So when we wrap up, I'll give you information about how to get in touch with that. So when we talk about networking, it's kind of like, what is networking? How does it work? Networking isn't just something that you start when you're looking for a job. Really is kind of an art. It's kind of a science of networking. Really, probably more of a way of life, something you should always be doing. And as an example of that, how many of you would say, boy, I sure wish I had started this networking thing long before I lost my job? All right, so the problem is that most folks think they know everything there is to possibly know about networking. Uh, and they charge out, they lose their job, they meet with friends, they meet with family. Then they ask them, hey, I guess you learned I lost my job and I really could use your help. If you can know of anything that I would fit, or just let me know. And when that kind of proves unproductive, then they just abandon it as kind of, hey, well, that was just a waste of time. It reminds me of the person that had some trees to cut down in the back of their yard. And so they went to Home Depot and told what the story was, and they rented him a chainsaw, and he was gone for most of the day. But when he brought the tool back, he just slammed it down on the counter, and you could just look at him. He was full of sawdust and sweat and had cuts and bandages on his arm. He said, that stupid thing doesn't work very well at all. And the clerk just said, well, let me see what's might be the trouble. And he fired it up, and and the guy said, what's that noise? Sometimes you think you know how to work something well, but you may just be clueless. So what we're going to do is give you some 9 nifty notes about networking that'll give you a better idea of what you need to do to properly network out of your network. So here we go. The first way to network from your network it is better to build bridges than to burn them. You burn them when you really jump into networking a little bit too soon, before you're really ready, before you do 3 things as a condition of starting networking and networking well. The first is being properly parted. What do I mean by that? Success comes when you're focused more on the future and not preoccupied with the past. Unfortunately, many people fail to recognize the emotional toll that job search has on people, and they just charge out networking. When asked about their prior work, I mean, their emotions are right on the edge, and it's really easy to trip them up. I always say, hey, start building your network after that emotional pang is kind of over, and so that if somebody says, well, tell me about your prior boss, you don't grit your teeth and face turn red and everything else. So take a little bit of time. People want to hear you talk more about tomorrow and less about yesterday. And then secondly, before you charge out networking, I want you to be properly pointed. You need to find your future focal point. Find that targeted position in which you're ready to prepare a campaign to go after that job, and go after that job with a vengeance. Success comes when you really narrow your focus, narrow your niche, and have a ability to send a simple single message to the marketplace. Once networking, people are going to ask you a very simple question. What kind of job are you looking for? And that's your opportunity to nail it. This is me. This is the job I'm after. This is what I do best. This is what I enjoy the most. If you come across as indecisive or unclear or unfocused or uncommitted, you're going to be unemployed. It just doesn't work as well as somebody that's a passion about what they're there and talk about. Job search is far more like spearfishing than net fishing. Job search is more like using a rifle than just a shotgun. Uh, you point at it and you hit it. People that come off and saying, well, I'm just trying to leave my options open, or I'm thinking about maybe being a IT consultant or working as a CIO. Those are different kinds of things. That's like sending a message saying I'm going to run for 2 different offices at the same time, or I don't really know what office I'm going to run for. I'm just leaving my options open. So figure out, get properly appointed, find your future focus. And then the third thing we'd say before you run out and start networking is be properly packaged. Success comes when you prepare your promotional package, not simply revamp your resume. To be properly packaged, you need a 2-minute verbal resume, you need a 2-page written resume aimed specifically at your focal point, and then you need a too often viewed LinkedIn resume. So what's the point? The point is the point is, if you are poorly prepared, your first contact with a network may cause more damage than good. And there's only one chance to make a good first impression. So it is better to burn bridges than to burn them, better to build them than to burn them. So make sure you've got these things. If you're early on in the job search, get these checked off your list before you jump out and start networking. All right, note number 2. You're always networking, either in one of 2 ways. You're either networking for enjoyment or networking for employment. Networking for enjoyment is often called the informational interview, and networking for employment is often called the occupational interview. We call in an information interview is where the main purpose is to gather in information. In networking for employment or an occupational interview, the main purpose is to respond to information, give out information. So seriously, in both types of interviews, there should be a sharing of information, but it mixes up and changes a little bit based upon type. In an information interview, you want them to do most of the talking. Consequently, you should be the one prepared to do most of the questions and asking. In an occupational interview, you should be doing most of the talking. But by most of the talking, what am I talking about? I'm talking about 60%, 40%, 40%, 60%, somewhere in that balance. In any interview that gets out of balance, 90-10, boy, you need to adjust that. So this is more conversational in tone than interrogation in tone. Okay, looking at process, networking for enjoyment is similar to strategic marketing. Networking for employment works more like tactical selling. Strategic marketing is all about market research, positioning, and branding. It's about getting the word out to the marketplace concerning who you are and what you do. Where tactical selling is more about getting that one-on-one meeting with somebody, getting them to make the right decision to say yes to what you're talking about. So consequently, when networking for enjoyment, the goal should be exposure, marketing yourself to the marketplace. And when networking for employment, the goal is getting closure, driving to results, driving to that offer. When networking for enjoyment, you gain exposure by meeting new people literally every day. Not a day should go by without meeting 2 or 3 people and letting them meet you. And when networking for employment, you gain closure by getting an offer. The offer could be an offer to come back, or the offer could be the offer to come to work. But if you notice that if you notice in your job search that there's not a converging to the end, you've started, you've had a few interviews, you've been screened by this person, and if that's not converging to an end, then you're just coasting. And really the only way to be coasting is to be heading downhill, So make progress with each meeting you have when you're networking for employment. All right, and then finally, when you're networking for enjoyment, the focus is on building lasting relationships. When networking for employment, the focus is on getting results. One of the fundamental mistakes I think is made in networking is the drive for results. We have a lot of type A folks out there and they want to drive for results rather than working relationships. Meeting with somebody to get something from them, maybe a lead, maybe 2 or 3 names to add to your prospect list. No. Networking is not about you. It is about how you can help them. If you build a relationship, who knows? Who knows what kind of results you may receive over the life of that relationship. So now listen up. Here's the secret, the real secret to networking. Every contact you meet, every situation is both an informational and an occupational interview. Each situation will have both a primary and secondary objective. You may meet someone, for instance, in an informational interview, but you might demonstrate your competence by asking great questions, and who knows where that might lead. On the other hand, you might be in a job interview and you just see that this is a bad fit, this is not going to work. Well, shift to gathering information about where to go next. Ask them, if not you, then who? If not here, then where? And if not when, now, then when? You can always turn one type of interview to the other because, in fact, you're always networking both ways. So what's the point? Remember that you're always networking, and if you're not networking, something terrible happens. Nothing. All right. So let's look at number 3. Number 3 is tackle targets, don't randomly roam the range. In order to be proactive, you need to tackle targets rather than randomly roaming the range. Randomly roaming the range is simply asking people you meet for people to meet. So let's say that they give you some names. All right. For example, they might give you the name of a recruiter, and that should help. But recruiters are specialists. And if they don't niche in your niche, then meeting them would just be a waste of your time. Well, they might give you the name of a well-connected person they know. Oh, that should help. But that person they know, who knows just about everybody, is their investment broker. And they may be more interested in your 401k than connecting you to their contacts. So meeting them would be a waste of time. Or maybe they give you a name of a friend they know. That should help. But, you're racking your brain and you can't really see how that person can actually help you in the least. So you blow them off and don't contact them. And then the person who referred you to them feels really unappreciated. So good luck next time. This kind of networking, moving from name to name, just wastes valuable time. You are looking in the wrong places, trying to find a job to replace the one you lost. With targets, you know where to look. You look for people who can move you closer to your targets, who can give you more information about your targets, who can give you maybe an introduction into your targets. Niche networking tackles targets, and it begins with the end in mind. Simply put, if you don't have a target list, or if you don't have a target to shoot at, the target tends to default to your foot. So let's look at what I mean by this. And this is one of the top ones of how we work with our clients to go directly into how to network the best way. So here's how you tackle targets. You need to target people inside target companies, inside target industry segments. And it starts with selecting your target industry segment. An example of what I mean by industry segments might be, let's say, financial services. An example of industry segments might be under financial services would be like banking or credit units, which are segments of that industry. Whoop, a little fast on the advance there. All right, so we're looking at those segments. You're looking really at how to identify those. Sometimes our list of target companies may come from those industry segments. Why? Because your track record tends to sell. So if you've been in an industry or in a related industry segment, now you have the track record, and track record gives you the shortest path to getting to finding new jobs. But on an alternative to looking at industry segments as a means of coming up with target companies, you could also target some things like startups or pre-IPOs or turnarounds, if that happens to be more of what your niche might be. But the issue here is they're all related somehow to the work experience that you may have or can parlay into that. Again, the key would be to have the experience, a track record of working with companies that share what the companies are on your target list have in common. Bottom line, you need to develop a list of target companies based on what they have in common, which is usually the same industry or the same industry segment. Now then, as you develop this list of companies, let me make sure you're just not putting out companies on that list just for fun. You have to really say, hey, would I work for this company if I put it on the list? If the answer is no, it shouldn't be on the list. If the answer is maybe, it shouldn't be on the list. The answer should be, if you happen to say, hey, John, do you know anybody on this list? And I say, how about that one? I know the CEO. I can make an introduction for you. That you don't go, well, I really don't want to work there. All right. They have to really be companies that you would really know that you would want to be able to work there. So then how many target companies? Well, as you can see, I suggest 200. 200. Whoa, that seems like a lot. Most of you, if you even look at, have developed a target list, probably is far less than that 200. But why 200? Well, first off, I will tell you that 200 works. It never fails any of our clients. Identify 200 targets and then work those targets. You will land a job, period. We've never had a client who's gone through the effort of knowing what companies they're after and identifying them doesn't end up successfully landing the job. So first off, 200 works. But secondly, 200 isn't 2,000. Oh my gosh, if you can identify 2,000 targets, you need to really tighten up your search criteria and narrow it down to a more manageable number of targets. And then finally, 200 isn't 20. I mean, let's face it, if all you can come up with is 20 targets, just call 2 in the afternoon and 2 in the morning every day of each week and just ask if the person's died yet. I mean, 200 is just not enough. You need to loosen up your criteria in order to have more on the list. Again, 200 is ideal. But you can increase or decrease the size of your list by, again, loosening or tightening your search criteria. What I would also do is 200 is not necessarily easily manageable. So I want you to give them a priority ranking. Make 10% A's, 30% B's, 60% C's against whatever criteria you would have. And now you've produced kind of a top 20 list. And you can increase or decrease the total number by just looking at a few criteria. And here's what is typical, you know, geography. Geography, if you are tried to just stay in Dallas and all you can come up with is 50 targets, you're going to have to face the fact that maybe you need to be regional or national, that 50 just isn't enough. Now you can still put in priority order, that the ones that are local have a higher priority, but 50 is not going to be enough. It reminds me of the client we had that wanted to be a marine biologist in Kansas City. You know, you're just going to need a few more target companies to add to the list. That's just not going to give you enough to play with. All right, so geography is one of those things. Size can be one of those factors that you look at. In terms of size, you may have a company on your list that's too small to afford what your compensation would be. Or there may be some other reasons, maybe to target smaller companies. You know, sometimes younger companies hire more mature workers, where mature companies hire younger workers. So you may have some other reasons of saying, yeah, that probably shouldn't be on my list. It's the wrong size company. And then there's always the type of company you may be looking for. In terms of its maturity, in terms of how long it's been in the market, I've had clients say, I don't want to go back and work for a publicly traded company. I don't want to work with an international company anymore. Or type could be, I want to work with a company that does business in Lithuania. You know, who knows? But your list can increase or decrease based upon what your own criteria would be. And as companies drop off your A list, replace them with ones that are on your B list or C list. Real simple. So what's the point of this? Targeting people within target companies, within target industries, creates the most direct and shortest path to your future employer. All right, I've got 7 questions. I'm going to take a pause here and see. How the hell does one come up with 200 companies to target? Especially if I take companies within commuting distance. All right, great question. I might go down to the Dallas Public Library, downtown Dallas. I might walk up to, I believe, the 2nd floor these days, where they have a business and technology section of the library. I might walk up to the research librarian that sits beside the counter, behind the counter, and I may say, hey, how does one in the hell come up with 200 companies? And they are going to introduce you to some free online databases that you can explore, again, by industry, by size, by type. One of my partners and I, a guy named Bob Williford, some of you may know Bob, and I have formed a company, you'll see this a little bit later, called Fast Company Buyers. And when one of our clients says, I want to buy a company, and we go, okay, what size, what geographical territory, what type, what line of business, and guess where we get our information? Out of the same kind of databases to go target companies. So it's not rocket science. What it is, it takes time and effort. And people tend to go, well, I want somebody to do it for me. No, this is one of those ones best done by yourself, so you can begin the research on any of these companies. They'll have the size of the company, number of employees, revenue range. Is a bunch of data that you'll learn besides maybe the data you pull out to keep for ongoing purposes. So that got that company. Let's see. Actually, you can find this online to come up with 200 companies, even online library. The internet is sometimes good at looking at companies. For instance, you can Google a particular industry, but right now they're not as good as coming up with lists of things. All right. So that's why I recommend library first, because that's access to databases. If you can get access to databases that have lists of companies, then that's great. You don't even have to get out of your chair. All right. So let's move on. I'll come back to pick up other questions as I get on through that. So you target people, target companies, target industry segments. I usually start from top, asking the client, what it is that is the nature of the work that they're looking for. All right, let's look at note number 4. It's a small world after all. Went to Disney with my grandkids, got so sick of that song. Okay, many people think that networking won't pay off for them because their network is so small. And it's not how small your network is, it's really how small the world is. And it's getting smaller and flatter every day. So let's look at these circle of contacts and ask the question, how many people do you know? Well, based on research conducted by sociologists and published in Social Access and Clustering of Personal Connections and Social Networks, here's their answer. First, let's look at, first, let's have the darn thing advanced. First, let's look at close contacts, people with whom you have a close personal mutual relationship. You know, how many close contacts do you think you have? I want you to think about that. Researchers would give you the answer of 9. Second, let's look at what I'd call regular contacts, people you meet on a regular basis, but you might not know too much about them. You might just know a name or a first name. You may know their face, but not their name. But you see them all the time. How many regular contacts do you think you have? Again, think. And I'll give you the researchers' answers. That would be 31. So between close and regular, there's a group of about 40 people that you see on a regular basis that you know well or just know. You may know about, but you may know real deep with some of those relationships. Well, then finally, there are acquaintances, people that you have met sometime, somewhere, somehow. So how many are those? Researchers' answer here is over 1,000. So people think their network is small because they are generally just thinking about those close and regular contacts, close and regular, like these 40 people. Oh, my network's so small. All I know is these 40 people. And because all those 40 people many of those 40 people may know one another, when you start networking, they'll say things like, well, have you talked to Gary? Have you talked to Walt? And you go, I already know these people. Matter of fact, I introduced you to these people at one time. So it's not as effective until you start working beyond close and regular contacts to get to the acquaintances or strangers that are going to be referred to you. So how does that work? This is the second part of the note. It's a small world afterwards. How many of you have ever heard about the 6 degrees of separation? Most of you have? Okay. This is what it suggests. It suggests that if a person is one link away from each person they know, and then 2 links away from each person who is known by one of the people you know, then everybody is at most 6 links away from any other person in the world. And it can be proven mathematically. And while 6 degrees of separation is kind of interesting, here's what will blow your mind. Instead of everybody in the world, what if we just narrowed it down to people in the good old USA? What do you think the probability is that person A could be linked to person B with, say, only 2 links? Only 2 links. All right, based again upon empirical work done by researchers and again published in Contacts and Influence and Social Networks. Their answer is, drum roll, 50%. 50%. It's a coin toss. It's a coin toss. And that's why you hear me say, do you know anybody that works for XYZ company? Or do you know somebody who would know someone from XYZ company? If you know somebody, you're 1 link away. If you know somebody who knows somebody, you're 2 links away. There's a 50-50 chance the answer to that question will produce positive results for you. All right, so what's the point? Your network is bigger than you think when you consider how few links are required to make a contact with the target. One more reason why you have to have targets to make this be proactive and effective. All right, let's look at number 5. It's all about social media. And let's talk a little bit about online networking communities as a resource for job seekers. You know, Gary and Walt talked a little bit about having been at earlier stages of the career transition workshop. When we first had this out, we didn't just say LinkedIn and Facebook. We had MySpace and Plaxio and a bunch of things that have since fallen by the wayside. And these are the winners. These are the winners. And first, there's a difference between social networking, connecting with friends to socialize, versus business networking, developing relationships to help deliver results. Consequently, the more business-oriented websites usually produce better results, and we would recommend LinkedIn. Everybody should be on LinkedIn, and everybody should be aware of what they need to do with LinkedIn and how to construct a LinkedIn resume. And Facebook is a good one for social site, and it can also give information in terms of your researching individuals as well as LinkedIn. But LinkedIn is the best for business networking. What's happening now is recruiters are now searching both of these databases for candidates. So watch out what information you present. Remember, you will be judged by the company and friends that you keep. I always love the fact that I'll look at somebody's LinkedIn picture and there the person is in appropriate business attire, and then you flip over to their Facebook and they're all standing by kegs of beer. I mean, you got to watch what you're doing because your messaging through these websites is now being looked at effectively by recruiters. So I would also tell you, hey, limit your time associated with being on these websites. It's really easy for a job seeker to hide behind a screen thinking they're actively working on their job search, when maybe that's not the most effective tool, but it's the easiest tool to use to hide from doing the real hard work. So what's the point here? Social media networking is important, but not a substitute for face-to-face relationship building encounters. High touch is better than high tech. High tech should prepare you better for high touch. All right, let's look at number 6. I'll come back for questions in a minute after I finish this one. You need to learn to discern. Learn to discern. Let's assume that you are successful and someone in your network gives you a referral, gives you the name of someone they know. It's kind of like, now what? Now you need to qualify the lead. Determine whether it is worth your time to connect to that contact. You need to qualify the contact, qualify the connection, and qualify the call. So what I mean by that, let's take a first look at qualifying the contact. You need to investigate. What is this person's potential? How might they be able to help me? The easiest way when someone gives you your referral, gives you a name, is to say, tell me a little bit about George. All right. They're the best source to tell you about George. Now, I'll just tell you, if they refer you to Henry, you say, how about Henry, not how about George. I just want to make sure I didn't mess people up there. But you're asking them, tell me about this person you're referring me to. Why is it important that I get to know as much about this person as possible? Well, first, you need to determine if they're really worth contacting. You know, the background information on a contact can be a source of what you could talk about once you get connected to them, what you two might have in common. So ask yourself, what do I need to know about them? Well, you need to know some professional information, professional background. What's the position? What's the company? How long have they been working there? Kind of what educational background they might have, what association, professional associations, personal associations might they be part of. You need to understand a little bit about their personal background. Do they have family, or what kind of interests they have? Tell me a little bit about the person's personality. Are they willing to help others? And as you gather this information, you're going to be evaluating that person's potential. Are they a high potential, medium potential, low potential? If during this discussion with your referral source, if you qualify the contact as a high potential, ooh, dude, always persevere to make that contact and make that connection. If you qualify the candidate as low or no potential, you need to ask the referral source why they recommended this contact. You might have missed something. If it ends up that you believe the contact really is not worth chasing, tell the referral source, hey, thanks, but I don't think I'll take the time right away to visit with them, maybe a little bit later. Otherwise, after somebody has given you a name, you have to, listen to this, you have to, within 24 hours, make an initial attempt to contact that referral. Because failure to do so, pushing it off, man, you come back to your referral source and they go, hey, did you talk to George? No, I haven't. How do you think that makes that person feel? They were giving you a gift to somebody they knew, and you didn't follow up on that. You didn't open the package. All right. So the second step is to qualify the connection. You need to assess how reliable are the relationships between you and your referral source, and between your referral source and their contact. All right. Connections really are like bridges. The stronger the bridge, the heavier the traffic. The heavier the traffic can go over it. The more you can assume or ask the contact once you're with them. You know how strong your relationship is with the referral source, but what's the relationship like between your referral source and their contact? And the way you find out is, again, how do you know George? Tell me a little bit about what your history is together. Connections are only as valuable as the weakest link. With strong links, you can make much more happen. And then the final thing to qualify is the call itself. You need to think about how reasonable is the referral. You need to measure the temperament of the call, or the temperature of the call. What do I mean by that? Well, let's just look at different ways of classifying calls. One is a cold call. A cold call obviously is when the referral source is non-existent. It's when you make a cold call, the gatekeeper might ask one of these killer questions. She's in a meeting right now. Can I tell her what the nature of your call is? Ugh. Who are you with? Just me here, all right? Or is this in regards to employment? These are killers. On a cold call, you get stopped usually in your tracks making cold calls, all right? But then there are cool calls. A cool call is when the referral source is present, but passive. When they simply say, hey, use my name. Use my name as if that's some great door opener for you. And yes, you can call and say, hey, Walt Glass suggested that I give you a call. Is George in? And what does the gatekeeper say? And who are you with? And is this in regards to employment? Or, what are you doing? A cool call is just kind of one notch up from a cold call, because your referral source didn't do anything other than give the name out. So what you're really looking for is a warm call. And a warm call is when the referral source is not only present, but is proactive. They are willing to call or write or email and say, hey, I'll make the call, to tell them to take the call when it comes in from you. That's great. That's a good warm call. But you want to know what a better warm call is? A better warm call is when the referral source requests a meeting between their contact and you. Wow, that's really what you're after. But actually, there's something even better. The best referral source suggests a trilateral meeting with all three people, the referral source, the contact, and you. Here's what the good book says. In Proverbs, it says, let another praise you and not your own mouth, someone else and not your own lips. Your referral source can do that if you get the three of you together. All right. But optimally, there's hot calls, and hot calls is when the referral source has made such an effective pitch for you that the referral wants to give you a call and invite you to join their company, or at least meet them for a meeting, first meeting. So what's the point? If a contact is worth chasing, then learn as much as you possibly can about the contact and about the connection that is between the referral source and the contact before trying to warm up any sort of a call. All right, let me jump back to see if there are additional chat questions on this. I've got hello from, let's see, what about LinkedIn meetings and messages where referral source gives an intro? What are the considerations on that? I'm glad this, Jason, you asked that question. Far too often, people are assuming that LinkedIn is the best way to make that connection. LinkedIn is not. Your referral source should be able to give you more direct or more intimate, like a cell phone number, to be able to contact somebody that they know well. I mean, if you're just fishing in the sea, you're going to begin to get back to the cold call status. But if you're coming through to somebody through a referral source, then they have better information than just using LinkedIn. So what would you use LinkedIn for? To fully investigate what that person says is their background on LinkedIn. But then I would go through trying to make a call to make a connection. When your email's not working because nobody calls you back, when the phone's not working after you left a message, and you've tried different ways to reach out, then last resort, I would go back through LinkedIn. But generally, if they didn't return an email or didn't return a phone call or a voice message, you know, they're not going to necessarily do LinkedIn as well. All right, good question though. A three-way discussion, let's see. Hello from New York, healthcare, currently happy to connect in the network, okay. All right. All right, we got 3 more to go, and then we'll be wrapping up real quick. All right, so the next issue is you got to kiss a bunch of frogs to find the prince. So pucker up and get ready to kiss a bunch of frogs. That's right, a bunch of frogs, which means don't expect to find a prince on the first kiss. It takes time, so don't expect too much too soon. Here's what happens along this contact connection chain. You know, the starting point, networking starts with the primary contact, and that is, again, somebody you know personally. Intermediate stops are like secondary contacts. That's people you don't know who have been referred to you by somebody you do know. But then there's the third and fourth level out. Contacts are with people you don't know who've been referred to you by people you just met. So here's the key. Where do most of the hits happen? At the primary level, secondary level, third or fourth level? You know, where do the hits? By hit, I mean, where does the job offer typically come from? Well, this may fool some of you, but most hits happen 3 to 4 out. 60% happen with the third or fourth contact out. So let's interpret this. You know, here's another question. Let's say that you have a free hour tomorrow afternoon, and there's a high potential person in your that you personally know that you haven't yet contacted, And then there's also this high potential total stranger who was referred to you by secondary contact that you just met. Who do you try to meet? Who do you try to meet? Which one of those two? Well, the right answer is based upon where most hits happen, and that's the stranger. More awkward because you're not talking to somebody you know, but more productive because you're going after where the hits occur. So I could also talk to you about the different ratios, like the ratio of how many people you meet before you generate a job lead. Those are typically high ratios, like 10 to 1, 20 to 1. But then the hit ratio between the number of job leads generated to the number of offers received is much lower. Typical ratios are 5 to 1, 10 to 1. You combine those, you're going to be talking about 100 to 200 contacts to receive a single job offer. You know, setting a pace of contacting 2 a day or 10 a week would take you 10 to 20 weeks of effort to get a single lead. All right, so, or a single offer. So again, networking is like a giant funnel where you meet contacts at the top and have faith that a job will drip out on the bottom. Your job is not to watch for the drip, but just keep feeding that funnel constantly. Again, the good book says, cast your bread upon the surface of the waters and you will find it after just a couple of hours. After many days is what it says. So what's the point here? Networking is a game of chance where the odds of winning improve as you increase the potential for hits and increase the number. So in short, find a bunch of frogs that are good looking. All right, here we go. 2 more to go and we'll be done. Nurture your network. True networking, person-to-person networking in person, requires that your network, nurture your network and be careful never to abuse it. How? First, I would say focus less on the efficiency of short-term results, like, ooh, I got to get that person a resume, and focus more on the effectiveness of long-lasting relationships, like developing a resource that will last a long time. Networking is more like a courtship than a one-night stand. Payoffs may not occur at the point of the meeting or your initial interview, or even during your job search. It may come later and more indirectly. Secondly, focus less on pushing forward as in a linear race, and focus more on looping back as a circular embrace, as a way of staying in touch. You're not trying to race through everyone you know and let them know you're out of work. What you're really trying to do is you're constantly looping back, revisiting people in your network. For high potential people, hey, loop back usually is short. And for low potential, you still want to loop back, but maybe it's more like once in a while. And then third, focus less on having people feeling used and more on having people feeling useful. Relationships are built brick by brick over time. Time spent getting to know that person, studying that person, reading all that you can about that person, talking with that person, listening to them. Interestingly, it's the same things you do in building a relationship with God. So what's the point here? Relationships don't simply mature in a magic moment of a single meeting. And then last but not least, is the golden rule is not whoever has the gold rules. Many different faiths and religions have their version of the golden rule. Matthew, a Jewish tax collector under Roman Empire occupation, recorded how Jesus said it. And taking from Eugene Peterson's message, this is how he presents it. Here's a simple rule of thumb to guide your behavior. Ask yourself what you want people to do for you, then grab the initiative and do it for them. Reciprocity, it is like a gift exchange. But here's the secret to success. You give without expectations of getting anything in return. Only the hope. The rules of reciprocity have 3 axioms. Sowing precedes reaping. Zig Ziglar once said, you can get anything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. And then, of course, the Beatles said, in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Second is the O factor precedes the I factor. The I factor is thinking only about I, me, my, mine. The O factor considers others as more important, considers them. They might not actually be, but you want to consider them. You want to regard them as that. In an ancient letter written to the Philippians, it says, do nothing of selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, let each of you regard one another as more important than themselves. Do not merely look after your own self-interest, but also the interest of others. And then finally, giving precedes getting. Truly, there are more blessings in giving than getting. Churchill said it this way, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. All right, my friends, we're at the end. I said I would come back and talk about things. One is I want to make sure I address any other questions. I'll do that in just a minute, if time permits. If you have a question, a burning question you didn't want to ask or didn't get answered, there's my email address, jmcd@transitionconsulting.com. Be glad to visit with you via email, or if necessary, we'll connect by phone. I do encourage you to learn more about a bunch of different topics. Networking is key, like Jeff started our meeting with. If you want to learn more, go to Career Transition Workshop, here's the key, .org, and you will find a bunch of modules and information about how to conduct a successful job search. But sometimes we ask our clients that start out looking for a job, why are you looking for a job? And they'll say, you know, food, clothing, shelter, all those good things. Well, you might be more in mind of thinking about buying a company instead of getting the job. Sometimes it takes less time to go do that. It's interesting. Sometimes it's easier to buy a company and appoint yourself king than to try to convince somebody you should be king. So Jeff, I'm turning it back to you. We're getting close to the end of the hour, and I want to make sure we end on time. But if you want me to take some questions, I'll be glad to do that as well.
All right. Well, I want to thank John for his talk. If anybody has any questions, you're welcome to unmute your mic, ask away, and we will get those questions answered for you. Anyone have any questions?
So did you play that video from his site, or is that just something you have on file?
He did this presentation for us about a year ago. So yeah, I just replayed this. I've got every recording we've done over the last 2 years I have on my computer. So I can go pick and choose and play whoever I want, whenever I want. But his message is timeless. I mean, you know, it's basic. Networking's networking. A lot of our networking presentations we're going to be giving this year are going to be the recordings from last year. So yeah, the materials, just as, you know, it's the same material. It's good material. Having him do it live. The only difference is we don't get him for the question and answer.
I agree fully. I just didn't know if those were on his website or not. I haven't had a chance to go there yet.
Yeah, no, this recording is on the Career USA YouTube channel and on my computer.
Alrighty, thank you.
Anything I can answer for anybody else?
This is Rich. The one question on point number 8 that he had. I was writing notes here. O factor precedes I factor. Presumably the O factor is others. Is that
Others
correct?
before individuals, yes.
Yep. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, let me share a couple more things and we will get out of here today. Career DFW and Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week. We want to appreciate, thank you very much for joining us today. Tomorrow morning, oops, let's see here, get this to go. Tomorrow morning at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, we're going to be talking about personal branding. This is a 2-part workshop. There is a handout which I sent out with the email blast today that if you can have it ready to go, it'd be to your advantage. If you'd like to join us tomorrow morning, please do. The next 2 weeks, we'll be talking about branding. Part 1 tomorrow, part 2 in a week. So you're welcome to join us tomorrow morning at 9:30. Next Tuesday, our presentation will be with Ruth Lipsky. We do LinkedIn every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, LinkedIn search engine optimization. And on Wednesday, the practice interview team will have an actual practice interview. If you'd like to schedule an interview to be interviewed, just reach out to the pit crew, dallaspitcrew@gmail.com, and send a resume and a job description, and they will schedule an interview that we all can watch on Wednesdays. If you'd like to join the Career DFW or Career USA LinkedIn groups, you're welcome to do so. You don't have to live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to join the Career DFW group. This session has been recorded. It is going to be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. You'll be able to go back and watch either of them if you would like to go back and watch it again. On the Career USA YouTube channel, which is what I prefer people to go to, just because I have playlists set up and it makes it easy for you to go back and find a video. You can see if you click on playlist where the green arrow is down below, you'll see the different playlists that I've put together. Find the networking one. Don't click on the video, but go down below where it says view full playlist, and you will be able to see up will come a list of all the different networking titles and topics and who talked about it. So here you go. You see the third one down, John McDorman in March 15th, 2021. So this is the same presentation as he gave back then. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops and you'd like to get on the Career USA mailing list, you can do so by sending an email to Career USA, +subscribe@groups.io. You will not be spammed, but what you will get is the title of the day, the topic of the day, and most importantly, the Zoom link of the day. That way you can just click on the link and you can join us in our presentation. Please remember, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. All of our speakers are volunteers. I'm a volunteer. I've never gotten paid to do any of this over the last 13 years. I'm just here to try to help you land your next great opportunity. So have a great afternoon. Thank you for joining us once again, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow or one day next week.